Señores, queridos amigos, muchas gracias por estar hoy aquí. Quiero expresarles mi agradecimiento por su amable invitación, director. Tanto mi esposo como yo estamos encantados de visitarles a la casa de uno de los poetas más importantes del mundo, Pablo Neruda. Pablo. I wish to thank the museum and in particular its director, Ms. Carolina Rivas Cruz, for facilitating our visit today. Sabine and I are delighted to be in this special place, at the home and space of one of the world's greatest voices. And we appreciate our visit all the more, given that 2012 is the centenary of the birth of Matilde Uriet. Para mí es un gran privilegio tener esta oportunidad de decir unas palabras en honor de Pablo Neruda. I have come to pay my respects not only to one of the great poets of the 20th century, but to one of the great public voices on democracy. And I have come here not only to pay my respects to a radical Democrat, one who truly in every fibre of his being believed that every life mattered, that every man, woman and child, and that to them the resources of nature belonged in a material and above all in a spiritual sense. At a very early stage of my own writing poetry, I remember his powerful poem, La Voz de la Gente, and when he spoke about the rivers are not theirs, the air is not theirs. And from that there was his vision of the idea that the world, as we could come to know it, but more important as we could to experience it through nature, belonged to all. That the human adventure is and was and will be a common endeavour to which all contribute, none taking precedence over another in the pursuit of dignity and justice and hope and love, and humour too, as one can clearly recall and sense in his work in Italy. Pablo Neruda lives in our hearts as a radical Democrat who made his poems as a gift in all sincerity to the people with whom he shared his life, his language, his destiny, and his gifts. The world, in turn, then has come to know of the power and the passion of his poetry. And this poetry of his is, of course, of Chile in its location, but in its invocation of humanity, it is of all the world. It offers, representing as it does, the best of this large-hearted country, Chile, lodged by Pablo Neruda in the universal consciousness of humanity. The citizens of Chile, of all generations now and into the future, will never forget how passionately and honourably Neruda served his country, as consul, as ambassador, and senator. And who could not be moved by the account of his last days, when he must have thought that all he had dreamed of, el sueño del Chile del mundo, lay in ruins and had disappeared, along with his colleague and friend Salvador Allende. Nevertheless, I want to say here on this special sacred ground, perhaps in all humility, to the shade of Neruda himself, Pablo, nothing is ever lost that has been born of goodness in the human heart. The unquenched thirst for justice is not lost. The unquenched thirst for a true poetry is not lost. And Pablo Neruda, as long as we have your poems to read and speak, your example to steer our lives by, hope is not lost. And it is important to believe in unquenchable life and hope. In his magnificent Nobel Prize acceptance speech, Pablo Neruda said, I always had confidence in man. I never lost hope. That may be why I am here with my poetry and with my flag. He raised that poetry, that flag, before the eyes of the world, so that forever after it would be impossible to think of Pablo Neruda without thinking of Chile, or to think of Chile without thinking of Neruda. In his beautiful lyric, El Perezoso, Neruda offers us this resonant closing line. No quiero cambiar de planeta. I have no wish to change my planet. And those of us who have been around the house and seen this wonderful gathering of things that are of the sea and of the life could well understand why he would not want to change his planet with all its hopes and unrealized dreams too. The poem is a quiet, maybe a deceptively quiet hymn to his beloved country, but on a larger scale to all of us, those of us who value words. It is a hymn to our beloved earth, this threatened, fragile, and often achingly beautiful one planet that we share with responsibility and joy and celebration. And if by now Pablo Neruda can rightly be considered a universal poet, it is because of this generous double pulse in his heart, his unwavering love of his native country in its essence and in its materials and in its people, and his unwavering solidarity with all the struggling peoples of our common shared world. Our own great champion of the Irish people, James Connolly, once wrote, "Ireland without our people means nothing to me." He meant this as a corrective to any sentimental vision of an ideal as Ireland, an island of objects or spaces without people, a Victorian vision without real or meaningful content. I think James Connolly's and Pablo Neruda's words call ourselves towards a shared duty, a duty of care to our common world and to our common humanity, our unrealized possibilities within our common humanity, a duty of care that Neruda would have insisted cannot be fully exercised until and unless it engages responsibly and actively with politics. For we must not forget, and I saw the inscription, that it was the murder of Federica Garcia Lorca and other atrocities of fascism that propelled Neruda into politically active dimension of his life. Roberto González Echeverría tells us that España el Corazón, Spain in the Heart, was published on the front lines at Barcelona in the terrible year of 1937. As he put it, printed on paper made by the soldiers captured from flags, rags, bloodied gauze and other trophies of war. Por fin, Pablo Neruda understood the true meaning of that venerable phrase, "An injury to one is an injury to all." And having understood its meaning, he accepted the concomitant moral responsibility that it called for, that injustice is to be fought wherever and whenever it rears its head, and that silence in the face of injustice is intolerable and unacceptable. In 1938, in an essay published in Aurora, Santiago, Neruda addressed these words to the shade of Cesar Vallejo: "And what can we do in this world to be worthy of your silent, enduring work, of your private, essential growth?" Let me, in closing what I have my words, and as a poet, state these same questions to the shade of Pablo Neruda, and let me answer. We will keep your words. We will nurture your hopes. We will guard your memory. We will not disappoint you. Viva Neruda! Viva Chile! Viva nuestro planeta común! Viva la esperanza y la justicia! Viva la poesía!